Hello and welcome to this dialogue special edition, BRICS with a Stronger Voice. This year's BRICS Summit has grabbed the world's attention not only due to its record-breaking scale, but also the sweeping range of issues to be covered. How will the BRICS' ongoing expansion bring about changes in the global economy, but also in energy cooperation and innovation? What kind of a world order is the grouping striving for? And in what way will a greater BRICS give a bigger voice to the global South and help achieving openness, inclusiveness, cooperation, and win-win on a global scale? Join us for discussion today from Beijing. I'm Xu Jianduo.
Not only the right of each country to choose its way of development, but respect also its political system, its culture.
These new members can really amplify the voice of the global South.
BRICS is not an anti-Western organization.
It will put Western institutions into a proper perspective.
China is absolutely leading the way in making possible for the rest of the world. The future is BRICS.
Joining me today for the discussion are Zhu Jian, Professor and Deputy Director of the Center for UN and International Organizations Studies at Fudan University. Welcome to the show, Professor Zhu. And also John Pang, Senior Fellow of the Belt and Road Initiative Caucus for Asia Pacific. Welcome, John. And Karen Vazquez, Associate Professor and Assistant Dean at OP Jingdao Global University. And Professor Saeed Mohammad Morandi from University of Tehran. And Hiwo Kibret, Development Finance Advisor at Development Reimagined. Welcome to Dialogue. Karen, I will start with you. So this summit is the first of this expanded grouping. Tell us, of course, there are a lot of topics to be covered. As the chair of this year, Russia emphasized, there will be topics about economic partnership, cooperation in science and innovation, security and counterterrorism, culture and sports, etc. So what are you looking forward to?
Thank you very much for having me in the show. What we are looking forward to is a strengthened multilateralism, which is the topic of the summit in Kazan this year, and the theme of the Russian presidency of the BRICS in 2024. And the strengthened multilateralism for a more equitable global development, for better security. And the theme actually reflects the original purpose of the BRICS when the bloc was created more than 15 years ago, which was for a craving for a more balanced and inclusive world order that reflects the interests of the different economies, and especially the economies in the global South. I think what we can anticipate, what we can expect, is especially with new members joining the BRICS this year, what we can expect from the Leaders Summit with this increased representation is a stronger political push for a more equitable and inclusive world order. And this said, I think these new members can really amplify the voice of the global South on key issues like fair trade rules, more equitable climate finance, greater technology transfer, and the emphasis on inclusivity and representation that the BRICS has placed in its discussions throughout all these years will also help address the issues of underrepresentation of the global South in institutions like the IMF and the World Bank.
Yeah, Professor Zhu Jian, you were nodding your head. So obviously, you agree with Karen?
Yes, I totally with Karen. This year's summit, I think, is a little special, at least for 3 points. One, the membership. As you mentioned, new members. So BRICS group, since the beginning, the year 2006, at the foreign ministers meeting, and then 2009, the leaders meeting, until now, 15 years. So we can now have new members from the different background, with Iran, with Saudi Arabia, with QAE, and Ethiopia, Egypt. These are new members. So how the new members will behave in this group, and the traditional BRICS members with the new members interaction. This is very special this year. Secondly, I think this year summit is very special because of the timing. This year, the timing is also very special. Just now, the September, the UN hosted the summit of the future and issued the pact for the future, talking about the global governance reform. So next year will be the UN and IMF, World Bank, the global governance system, 80 years after the Second World War. And also many new international organizations with like the BRICS, New Development Bank, the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, these new IOs, 10 years next year. So in this year, I think is 2024, very special. We will see the global governance, the system, the traditional system, 80 years, and the new IO's 10-year anniversary. So BRICS is a group to push the global governance change, reform.
Very special summit there. As he will, I know Ethiopia is a new member to this year's summit, to the BRICS grouping. Tell us what kind of benefits Ethiopia is looking at from this membership.
Well, yes, I think in many ways, Ethiopia joining BRICS provides many advantages. I think as a country that definitely needs additional financing, I think one of the most obvious answers is access to the new development bank. Ethiopia currently needs significant amounts of financing as we continue to face debt servicing constraints, as we also see throughout the continent. And I think as countries like Ethiopia look to alternative sources of financing, I think joining a group like BRICS in many ways provides new opportunities, especially for securing concessional finance.
Let's move on to Professor Morandi. Well, Iran is also a new member of this year's summit, so what kind of advantages of becoming a member of this larger developing countries club, let's say?
Probably the most important element is that Iran would like to see a world where the United States and Western countries don't have extraordinary influence over the rest of the international community, and that the global South, the international community, can do trade and business and investment without being bullied or impeded by the West. So independent financial institutions are, of course, very important. Methods of trade and transaction that cannot be disrupted by the West are key. But also, I think that over the past few years, in particular, the United States has had a very reckless policy with regards to its financial sector, and therefore the dollar is not only has it been weaponized, but also the United States has been printing an extraordinarily large amount of dollars, and the change in the interest rates and so on. All of this has caused huge difficulty for countries across the world, across the global South. So to move away from the US dollar and to move away from Western financial institutions would be of great benefit for Iran, but also countries across the global South.
Well, John, of course, you are from, let's say, Malaysia. Well, you are not official representative of Malaysia, but let's say your understanding why Malaysia is actively seeking to join this group.
Yes, indeed. And why not? Actually, what BRICS stands for really is a way of organizing interstate relations and a vision of the international order that Malaysia and the rest of Southeast Asia in the form of ASEAN has long been committed to. So, next year, for example, we'll see the 70th anniversary of the Bandung Conference. It wasn't just Southeast Asia. There was a conference there was an Afro-Asian conference in which, at a particular time, the world came together as the global South is coming together now, the global majority is coming together now, to try to enact among themselves a different way of conducting these interstate relations. And those principles of a kind of more inclusive, non-rivalrous relationships in which, characterized by mutual cooperation, mutual respect for sovereignty, that's always been a priority. So BRICS is very much like ASEAN in that regard. It's ASEAN countries would feel very much at home. And if Malaysia were to join this year, then it would be the first ASEAN country. It would, in a way, be a kind of representative of ASEAN in BRICS. So really, this it's a prototype of BRICS is, I think, a prototype of multipolarity that the rest of the world seeks, that most of the world seeks. So we call it the global South, but now it's the global majority.
Mm-hmm. If you look at Ethiopia's situation, of course, as a new member, we know that over the past couple of years, when the U.S. raised the interest for the U.S. dollar, many developing countries, including Ethiopia, suffered from the situation where, there's a shortage of U.S. dollar, for example, reserve currency, and also probably harder to attract foreign investment, direct investment there. By becoming the member, in what way that can help? Earlier you mentioned a little bit about the financing from, say, a new development bank, all this reserve arrangement. Give us more specifics, in what way that can help Ethiopia with the situation?
Absolutely. So with the new development bank, as most of us know, it prioritizes infrastructure and sustainable development as sort of a key driver of economic growth and prosperity. And unlike other development banks, especially other MDBs, the focus on infrastructure development across different areas is really key for many low and middle income countries like Ethiopia. And it provides a very unique and attractive financing alternative. So if we were to look at other major banks, in particular MDBs, infrastructure is often under-prioritized. So if we go back to the 80s and early 2000s, the IMF and the World Bank focused on social spending and governance over infrastructure. And then we started to see a surge in infrastructure financing by the World Bank. And even in the case of the African continent, we saw more financing through the African Development Bank that are starting to invest heavily on infrastructure as well. But the reality is that the level of commitment that we're seeing and the volumes of financing that we're seeing by major financial institutions is much lower than the financing that is needed. As countries are trying to grow their industries and invest in sectors that will catalyze their economies, infrastructure is really the way to go. And so this lack of infrastructure financing can be seen, across the global South. So if we, at Development Reimagined, for instance, we have an upcoming infrastructure financing report, and it shows that the majority of financing on infrastructure on the continent is actually by African governments, followed by African financial institutions. So in Ethiopia, for instance, we found that to reach the Sustainable Development Goals, the investment cost that was needed just on infrastructure alone was between 200 to 300 billion. Between 2021 to 2030. So the needs at an individual country level and at a regional level are massive. And here's where, the new development bank can really provide that gap, can fill in that gap by providing infrastructure financing when other financial institutions have failed to do so. Even if you look at the Asian Infrastructure and Investment Bank, right, we also saw not too long ago that Kenya joined the AIIB as well. And so we're seeing this sort of shift in a desire to look at different alternative sources of financing. And for Ethiopia, that's going to be extremely important. And that shift away from traditional avenues of financing from the World Bank and the IMF and other similar institutions will be very important to see.
In addition to this financing of infrastructure, emphasis, from this new development bank, what about this? What the differences from, say, between securing credit from IMF or from this BRICS group? Is it easier or is it more difficult from which institution?
Well, yes, unfortunately, when borrowing from the IMF or the World Bank, there's often conditionalities attached. So for far too long, we've seen countries advocating for a reform of the Bretton Woods institutions that have shown, time and time again that they are not fit for purpose and also do not have the interests of borrower countries at heart. And they continue to prioritize end creditors and don't really reflect the realities that we see in the world today. And as mentioned, these institutions are celebrating 80 years this year, and we've barely seen changes in their operations and their governance and their lending structures as well. So when we see the emergence of NDB, countries are given that flexibility and that breathing room to invest in areas where they feel like it is needed the most, which is why for a country like Ethiopia, it would be extremely important.
Well, let's turn to, say, energy cooperation among the BRICS members. Professor Zhu, of course, we know if you look at these BRICS members, including the new members, of course, they are rich in traditional energies and also resources for, let's say, new energies. For example, rare earth resources. They have 72% of the global total. And if you look at this oil supply, global oil supply, 42%. They are also equally rich in natural gas. So in what way that can be, let's say, leveraged, for the development of these BRICS members?
Yes, now with new members, including Iran and Saudi Arabia, these new BRICS. Now look at the 10, the BRICS countries. We have the big energy supplier. And also we have the big energy demander, including China, India. So I think within the BRICS, the group, now we are talking about the BRICS energy cooperation. We talk about the energy security, how to stabilize the price, the market. So I think from the BRICS perspective, we want to from the developing country perspective, from the demander and the supplier side, how to keep the balance between the demander and the supplier from the market perspective. And also, secondly, I think the energy cooperation related to the climate change. Now the BRICS countries also very active to participate the global climate change governance. I think now how to push the energy transition. This is also a BRICS cooperation agenda.
Well, transition. Professor Morandi, at the meeting of the energy ministers of BRICS member states last month, so Iran's energy minister Abbas Ali-Abadi described the entry of new members to the BRICS group as strategically important, considering the huge energy resources and the significant transit role of these countries in the political geography of the world. What's your take of this statement?
I think in future, especially with the political and economic instability that we're seeing in today's world, commodities are going to be increasingly important. And of course, at the top of the commodity market, we have energy, we have oil and gas. And therefore, it will be key for BRICS countries to cooperate extensively. So the better the financial cooperation, the more extensive the cooperation that exists between the financial systems between these two countries, the easier it is to invest and also to cooperate with regards to the energy sector, especially since the future of AI is becoming more important by the day. We know that AI needs a huge amount of energy. And since East Asia right now is moving forward very fast, especially China, in this particular field. I think it is very useful to have both those advancing technological states in the same organization as those states that have huge supplies of energy. And the United States and the West, which have always tried to manipulate markets, they've always tried to also control the oil and gas and energy markets as well. And I think through BRICS, we can, alongside other issues, we can also have greater energy security for countries across the global south or the majority.
Well, Karen, Brazilian ambassador to Russia, Rodrigo Soares, said also at the same meeting, actually, quote, "For Brazil, energy transition and energy security are two sides of the same coin." So, like, basically, with one stone, killing two birds. So that's the direction of Brazilian energy problem development?
Yes, there is indeed a need not only for Brazil, but most of the developing countries to balance the shift towards renewable energy with reliable and affordable energy access. So this is how we understand these two sides of the coin and how important it is for our emerging and developing economies. And for Brazil and possibly other BRICS countries as well, this means finding ways to reduce dependence on fossil fuels while maintaining stable energy supply, not only to power the economies, the industry, to boost, to fuel the economic growth, but also to ensure the well-being of the people of these countries. I believe that with an expanded BRICS mechanism, this topic could be accelerated, including energy transition, by promoting greater collaboration on renewable energy projects, like sharing technology and expertise amongst the BRICS countries, through financing of large-scale infrastructure projects like solar farms, wind power, clean energy grids, and here the new development bank could play a very important role in this financing of these projects and the broader energy transition of the BRICS countries. But of course, there are also challenges for this to happen, right? Not only striking the right balance between transition and security, but also how this transition could affect industries that are tied to fossil fuels that for many of our countries are key or central to our economies, and for the people, how this could potentially affect jobs, disrupt the economy, in particular in countries that are more dependent on these sectors, and which human capacity is still possibly not up to speed to be incorporated in the new industries, in the clean, renewable energy industries. So I think it's a very challenging path ahead to strike the right balance between the transition and the security, not only for the economy and the supply, but also for the people.
Speak of balance, John, some Western observers say that the expanded BRICS in terms of energy cooperation will probably take a similar approach to the US-led initiative called Minerals Security Partnership, which basically strengthens the stable supply of minerals like rare earths to the US market. What's your take on that?
I think the projecting that that interest onto China, if I'm not mistaken, right? China securing raw materials supply for itself. But I think this is much more, of course, this is the wrong picture because it's not about China alone. This is about all the countries participating in BRICS. But not only that, it's about global governance in the end. So while while BRICS is very emphatic that this is not to sort of upstage or overturn the US-led order in any direct sense, and stress that it wants to support and complement, the fact remains that there is a huge and unmet demand from the global south for development, for exactly the kind of development finance oriented towards infrastructure, for example, that the existing institutions don't meet. So it's really about the global finance, the monetary system, and trade being oriented towards the priorities of the global majority, which happen to be peace and peaceful development. So I think that's the context in which to look at issues such as the particular cooperation people undertake in coordinating the supply and demand for certain minerals or certain raw materials, for example. So there is a lot going on under this. When I said, talk shop, I meant to address the criticism. So the way this BRICS, which I think is the most important meeting going on in the world right now, or about to happen, the way it's dismissed and studiously sort of avoided in Western media, as if these people are just talking. But it's precisely that they talk and that they speak to one another and that their decisions are made in that fashion, not in some sort of top-down hierarchical imperial fashion. So this is a new way, a different way of doing things than people are accustomed to. But already we're seeing very, very concrete projects, such as in governance, such as AI governance that we've spoken about. And there's a lot to be done. There's a huge potential in the energy transition, which we've touched on, which China is absolutely leading the way in and making possible for the rest of the world. So that's an enormous industrial opportunity for everyone.
Yeah, we also touch upon that, obviously, about the perceptions or the views of BRICS groups, the summit later on. But picking up on what John has said, Professor Zhu, let's move on to this cooperation in another sector. That's the tech cooperation, science, innovation. We know that, the global competition, one of the critical area is really about the science and the innovation, AI, transformation of industries, and of course, other aspects, big data and drones, etc. So what's the potential of tech cooperation, and what do you see as the challenges too, probably, for this grouping?
Yes, for the BRICS, the science and the technology cooperation is one of the important agenda. Now in China, in Xiamen, we have a BRICS technology cooperation hub. It was established after the Xiamen summit, the BRICS summit in 2017. Now, for the BRICS technology cooperation, I think currently we have several, besides the Xiamen hub, we now coordinate like the rules, like the AI rules, and also some other, the new technologies. Now, from the global governance perspective, now the West, including the US and the EU, the G7 countries, now they are trying to make the rules. The BRICS try to make the rules more inclusive. It means the voice of the global South should be heard in making the rules for the new technologies. So I think for the BRICS, this group, two aspects for the science and the technology cooperation. One is the practical cooperation, like the Xiamen Hub, and also from the rural perspective.
Speak of the rules perspective, Karen, I know a couple of years ago you talked about the lack of rules, actually. This like legal provision in terms of protection of the data and also tech transfer, IP rights, for example. Where are we now?
I would like to begin my answer to this question by picking up on a point that has been discussed previously on whether BRICS is a talk shop or not. I think the point here is that we need to remember always that the BRICS were not just formed for collective action, even though collective action, practical cooperation is extremely important. But most importantly, they were created to spark systemic change. And this starts with dialogue. This starts with collaboration. This starts with creating trust and mutual understanding. And to achieve this systemic change and to initiate these practical cooperations in energy, in monetary cooperation, in technology, and any other field, we need this dialogue to keep going forward. And if we put in historical perspective, let's say a change in monetary standards took half a century to happen. So I think, as it was previously said, we need to take gradual steps and build this trust to lead to practical cooperation, and therefore, hopefully, this practical cooperation will lead into broader systemic change. Specifically on AI technology, we have the BRICS have recognized not only within the BRICS fora, but also at the UN and other policy spaces, the need for stronger legal framework for technology transfer, on cybersecurity, on data protection. The pace of implementation has been slow so far, but again, slow if we consider that the broader change that these countries are aiming are more than specific projects. They're leading to broader global changes, right? But there's still dialogue. There's still movement going forward on these areas for greater collaboration. So, for example, China and Russia have deepened cooperation in cybersecurity. There have been discussions on common data security standards among these countries and others. Of course, establishment of more comprehensive and enforceable legal provisions across the BRICS members is still in the early stages. Some countries like India have made progress in strengthening their domestic data protection laws, in Brazil as well. These laws have not yet been aligned across the bloc. So there are lots of opportunities. So these changes are happening at the domestic level. Dialogue and cooperation is happening across some of the BRICS countries. I think the next step is really to consolidate these in practical initiatives that can therefore lead to broader change. There are two specific mechanisms that I would like to highlight that were proposed in 2019 for technology transfer. And this is something that the BRICS could potentially look at into how to take it to full implementation. This has already been agreed in the 2019 summit by the countries, and that's a low-hanging fruit for countries to move forward action on this field.
John, of course, comparing the differences between, say, BRICS and Western organization, some would say this is a non-Western organization, but it's not anti-Western organization. Still, it's different. What's the purpose of having, or being consistent with those consensus building? With probably more countries will join this grouping. Will that kind of enlargement really become a problem, or what kind of mechanism do we need in order to have an efficient or effective decision-making process?
Yes, I think now currently the BRICS institutionalization, institution building is very important because we have new members. How to make the BRICS, still effective as before? I think now the not only the expansion but also the internal institution building is very important.
Interesting. Earlier we touched upon, of course, for new members, look at this kind of advantages or benefits they can get from becoming a membership. There's a senior fellow at the Chatham House, David Lubin. He talked about this. That is exactly because BRICS mechanism doesn't pursue any common geopolitical goals that many global South countries find it appealing to join the organization. If there's no common goals, what does that mean? What does that make this grouping probably less effective, less important?
I think it really goes back to what you were saying a bit earlier, and that is that BRICS is not an anti-Western organization, but the West sees it as somehow an anti-Western organization because the means by which they have been governing the world effectively in the past has been through a hierarchical mechanism. The United States makes the rules, the Europeans align themselves with the United States, and that's how the decisions are made. Whether it's in Ukraine, where the United States decides on its own and the Europeans decide to sanction Russia, and therefore they expect the rest of the world to obey, or whether it's in Gaza, where they provide the Israelis with whatever weapons they want, and the rest of the world has to stand aside. This sort of mentality in the West, this demand to have control, is exactly what has fueled the rise of alternative organizations, and BRICS in particular, whether it's regional organizations like the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, among others, or BRICS. It is all really because they want to be able to cooperate with one another without having this hierarchical order that has been imposed upon the rest of the world literally for hundreds of years through the rise of European empires. So it is not an anti-Western organization. It is an organization that simply wants to level the playing field. It wants to create opportunities for countries to work together and to cooperate with one another, and to rid themselves of the current monopolies. Right now, we have big tech controlled by the West. We have the corporate and mainstream media, which is largely controlled by the West. And the rest of the world wants to be able to cooperate with one another without the West being able to cut ties, without the West being able to create the narratives about different countries. And this is something very normal and natural. But again, the West sees this as a hostile move, and thus the statement recently made by Trump about punishing countries that move away from the US dollar, which is a right of any country to do so.
John, you mentioned about probably the absence of coverage in Western media, or the lack of talk about this summit. It's a very different organization. I mean, the performance, they perform differently also from Western organization, right?
Yeah, and thank goodness it does. I think commentators in the West seem to have a very difficult time understanding and any type of organization which isn't about this sort of hierarchical rule. I mean, if you take a look at NATO or the EU, even the EU and the way it's run, these are certainly not democratic organizations. They're very much run by a hegemon and a set of countries that resemble vassals. So these are not the types of relationship that are appreciated in the rest of the world, in the free rest of the world. So, but more than that, it's not just this matter of, we would prefer a system in which is more democratic and inclusive. For the global South, much of which remains, so to speak, to be developed, underdeveloped, this represents the very possibility of further development, because the current global order is heavily financialized, extractive. Financial assets, for example, in the global economy are many multiples of the real economy. That system, the ladder of development only goes so far, and it gets pulled away after you get to a certain point, right? So there's really no way you are ever going to achieve what China has achieved, for example, just by dint of its sheer size and determination, and its unique system and heritage. But now the rest of the world looks at this and says, look, we want that development too. So this is what's represented by this question of global order. There's the question of peace. No one wants to be dragged into a third world war, which is a sort of a seemingly recurrent week-by-week risk. But there's also the question of development. People don't want to remain poor and underdeveloped and held down by debt. So the issues are really very serious for the rest for the global South. I want to emphasize that those priorities and those concerns are not addressed under the present system and will not be. So that's why BRICS is so important.
Well, like the pursuit of development or pursuit of happiness. Aizhai, we know that currently about like 30 countries are expressing interest to join this group, like Sri Lanka, Cuba, even NATO member Turkey, or have probably supplied. There's a formal application. So how do you look at this? Attraction of this BRICS group? Is that a development opportunity for the countries?
Yes, I think there are several reasons why joining BRICS has been very appealing for many countries. I think, and this is mentioned before, BRICS is seen as a platform that promotes multipolarity, with many countries in the global South really attracted to an alternative economic and political bloc that is not dominated by a single superpower, and where interests and priorities are heard, understood, and acknowledged at all levels. And with the current global order, I think there's been great, power division between the North and South in terms of politics, in terms of global governance and economic size. And I think this establishment and this, this image of a fair multipolar world, bringing together countries with a very similar agenda under the spirit of, equality and openness and inclusivity, and not based on economic size and global political influence, I think is appealing to many countries. I think the second point would be, countries in the global South are also having, diplomatic and political pressures at, at global forums, in different institutions, including the United Nations, and those frustrations have made BRICS more appealing. BRICS represents not only the interests of its members, but also the interests of the greater global South. And I think there's also growing interest in joining BRICS, and I mentioned this before, as an alternative source of development assistance and cooperation, as the group is, expected to enhance its economic size and, together with the opportunity to join the NDB, as I mentioned, to receive additional financing. And I think, also the BRICS cooperation is extensive, ranging from, trade and finance to health and education and global governance. And I think having one platform that really brings these different areas together through, exchange and knowledge and technology transfer and all that really makes BRICS very unique. So I think a combination of all of these factors, of course, among others, and the failures that we're really seeing within the current global order has increased the appeal of BRICS and helped its expansion and growth as we see it today.
Well, Karen, of course, Brazil will take the presidency of BRICS for 2025. Are we expecting continuity of the agendas and also probably the continuous acceptance of new members?
Absolutely. Continuation of the agendas is certainly happening. As I said, this is beyond one presidency. This is at the very the aspirations for a more inclusive, equitable global order is at the origins of the BRICS itself. And in this year's BRICS presidency, Brazil's presidency of the G20 as one of the key priorities. So certainly this will continue in the coming year in different spaces, not only in the Brazil's presidency of the BRICS, but I would expect it to continue also in South Africa's presidency of the G20 and other policy spaces. Again, these are common aspirations that we have, and the benefit of this dialogue within the BRICS is really to spearhead this change and discussion and ideas across the different policy spaces.
Thank you, Karen. Well, that's all we have for today. With that, we are coming to the end of today's discussion. Many thanks to our guests. You can also watch us on the CGTN app on YouTube. I'm Xu Xinduo. Thanks for being with us. See you next time.
everyone. Welcome to our special edition of Biz Talk. I'm Lily Liu in Beijing. The 2024 BRICS Summit in Kazan is the largest foreign policy event ever held in Russia this year. How will the summit help to strengthen multilateralism for equitable global development and security? And how will the summit promote cooperation among its members and the Global South to build the future of the world together?
The BRICS are a group of leading emerging economies. Originally, it included 5 countries: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. In 2024, the member countries have expanded to 10 countries. The 5 new countries are Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates. In an increasingly polarized world, BRICS offers a new path to fashion a more inclusive global economic and political order. During the years since its launch in 2006, BRICS has flourished in a wide range of fields including trade and investment, energy, supply chains, as well as global digital and technological cooperation.
We are now glad to be joined in the studio by Mr. Victor Gao Zhikai, who is Chair Professor of Tsushuo University. And online we're joined by Mr. Jiang Tianjiao, who is Associate Professor and Associate Director of Center for BRICS Studies at Fudan University. He joins us live from Shanghai. Great to have you on the show, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Mr. Gao, I know you just came back from Russia. You were there at a meeting for the preparation work of this year's BRICS Summit. Tell us, what's your observation there, your first-hand information?
Exactly. I was in Moscow for 3 days for one of the preparatory meeting for the BRICS Summit meeting, which will be held very soon. My observation is that lots of people came to the meeting from almost up to about 100 countries, not only from the 10 member states of the BRICS organization and those who aspire to become new members, but from many, many other countries. Secondly, the events were very well organized. Now, the other thing was that the delegates, I was one of the speakers, of course, and the delegates, the speakers, were very enthusiastic in putting forward their ideas about green development, green urbanization, etc., which will be part of the topics to be discussed at the BRICS Summit. My overall impression is that the meeting I attended in Moscow was very well prepared, and I'm sure that the summit meeting in Kazan will be a complete success. Huge expectation for what BRICS organization would do.
Indeed, sounds like a lot to expect from this year's BRICS Summit. Thank you so much for sharing with us your hands-on experience in Russia. And now let me get to our guest, Mr. Jiang in Shanghai. We know that BRICS Summit has drawn a lot of attention. And this year, specifically, why do you think it is important this year in this global economic and political landscape?
Well, first, I think it is because Russia is holding this year's BRICS Summit. Russia, the world audience must have a lot of expectation on Russia, what Russia will say at the summit, and how Russia will hold this kind of big international event, whether it will be successful. And Russia is also, in a very important stage of its international relations with other countries. And I think it is also the first BRICS summit after the expansion from last year. So now this year we have 5 new members, and I think most of them coming from the Middle East region. They are very influential countries in Middle East. So I think the world audience must be very curious whether these 10 countries can sit down together and can have dialogue and can have more consensus and cooperations. And on the other side, I think it's because that now, in fact, the global economy is not doing quite well. So for the past decade, BRICS countries has played a very important role of the engine of leading the recovery of world economy. And now we have more members, new members, bigger market, huge populations. So I think there must be a lot of expectations on the opportunities, investment opportunities, trade opportunities brought by the expansion of the BRICS, and also opportunities for science and technology development, for global South development. So there has been a lot of expectations on this. And last but not least, I think we all have concerns about the future of geopolitics. We have seen the tensions across the different regions. There must be a lot of expectations on how BRICS countries can serve as a bridge, can serve even as a mediator to help de-escalate and to build dialogues, trust between two sides and find the political solutions to these challenges.
On January 1st, 2024, BRICS, the intergovernmental organization, admitted 5 new members: Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates. According to estimates, BRICS is now home to 3.27 billion people, or 41.13% of the world's population. It accounts for 37.3% of world GDP, or more than half as much as the EU. The 2024 summit is the first summit where 5 new members gather to attend. With its rising influence and attractiveness, BRICS is attracting more countries to join. Over 34 states have expressed their interest in joining.
What do you think adds on to the significance of the BRICS Summit 2024?
Well, first of all, I think BRICS actually has a lot to do internally to firm up all the details. Right now, there is a concern that BRICS organization is more symbolic, for example, rather than very much substance. That means there is an urgency to add more substance and more flesh to the bone. The bone is well made, and right now, as mentioned before, the membership increased from 5 to 10, and so many others wanted to become full members, including, amazingly, Turkey, which is a NATO member state and which has tried to become an EU member for decades. But now they decided that it's time for them to try something new, so they want to become BRICS members. Now, the other thing is that in addition to the internal work, for example, whether they need to really escalate some of the urgent matters, for example, they also need to do a better job to improve BRICS coordination with other non-BRICS members, especially those in the Global South. So both internally as well as externally, and also how to manage the pace of the expansion of the BRICS. Now, the greater significance for this year is that the world is at a war or peace period. And what does BRICS organization stand for? I think BRICS summit this time in Kazan need to make a very unequivocal message. That is, BRICS stand for peace. And BRICS oppose war of all kinds. And BRICS will be a major stabilizer of relations in the world. And I'm sure that the declaration or the statement eventually issued at the end of the summit meeting will really dwell on these very important messages: peace, diplomacy, consensus, for example, economic development, as in contrast to war, confrontation, rivalry of all kinds, etc.
Now, speaking of the role of BRICS in today's world, that actually leads to my second question. And I would like to go to Mr. Jiang first, because we know that the BRICS mechanism has become one of the pillars in this multipolar world. And how will this summit this year further to promote multilateralism and economic cooperation?
Today's world is standing at the crossroad again. As I just mentioned earlier, if the regional conflict continues, then there will be great risks about escalations. Well, on the other hand, I should say that the world economy, the recovery of the world economic development also face great challenges. And to some extent, I think the geopolitical gaming, great power competition also brought a lot of risks to, for example, the supply chain issue and also the sustainable development. So that's why BRICS always emphasize we need inclusive development, mutual beneficial model, and economic sanctions and also abusement of sanctions. So I think on this summit, there will be a lot of focus on these issues and also some very important topics, for example, energy security issues, food security, also cyber and AI security and development. These will be very important hot topics, and these are the topics that the world is facing together.
Now, Mr. Jiang, I would like to follow up on that a little, because this year, as you and Mr. Gao both mentioned, one of the key topics is to the expansion of BRICS. So we have 5 new members this year. First of all, what is your take on those 5 new members joining the BRICS? What is the significance of having them?
Yeah, so I think we have new members coming from Middle East and also Africa. In the past, well, we don't have representatives from Middle East, so which means that after the expansion, now we have representatives from different regions across the world, which means that BRICS is quite inclusive and it encourages South-to-South cooperation, inclusive cooperation. So it is not an exclusive club for some specific countries, but it welcomes all of these global South countries, emerging economies to work together toward sustainable development. And I would like to remind you that most of the new members are great power in energy export. I think this is also a very important part because it means that it will help BRICS to have a bigger, I think, influence in, for example, energy security issues, and to make sure the security of the energy supply chain. And this is also a very important foundation for the continuing social and economic development.
Mr. Gao, my question to you is a bit follow-up on the expansion topic. You talked about BRICS needs to become a stabilizer for today's world economy, and you talked about that BRICS need to learn to carefully balance the pace of expansion. It's never the bigger the better. How can they do that? To expand the BRICS in the meantime in a suitable pace, or to include members to the organization, to the platform, to make sure that BRICS will continue to play as a stabilizer?
China is probably the largest trading partner with all the other 9 BRICS member states. And what will be the role for China to play? Now, energy will be very important topic. Energy security for all members, including importing as well as exporting countries, will be important. How they can coordinate their production, importing, exporting, etc. Now, in addition to that, what will be the settlement and payment mechanism? Right now, for example, all the 10 member states still use, except Russia probably, still use US dollar very much. And going forward, some of the BRICS member states talk a lot about a new payment system, a new settlement system, for example, or a BRICS kind of framework to do the settlement and the payment. How much effort should be put in to really promote this, to accelerate this, speed it up, etc.? It will be very much talked about in Kazan, I suppose. Now, all this will be internal work. That is, the 10 member states, as well as other countries which may join BRICS as new members in the coming few years, how they will need to coordinate their economic development, green development, and all kinds of science and technological breakthroughs, as well as financial aspect of that. And I think they need to really coordinate everything together, put them into an overall scheme, so that not only the BRICS members will benefit from such new breakthroughs, but all the other countries that deal with BRICS member states will benefit. This is actually one of the reasons why BRICS is becoming so attractive, because it serves like a magnet. It's a magnet for those countries which want to have their voice heard, which want to have their own economic businesses well taken care of, and which wants really to participate in this new wave of globalization on equal basis, because every member of BRICS is equal to all the other member states, and major decisions will not be made unless on a consensus basis.
And Mr. Jiang, can I get your input on that question? Why do you think so many countries are lining up to join the BRICS?
Well, I would like to echo what our colleague just mentioned. I think the spirit, values, BRICS cooperation has long pursued. I think, for example, a more balanced, multipolar world, and also fair competition, sustainable development, and mutual beneficial, or we call it win-win model. I think all of these are what the global South country really need. There are so many global South countries, and I think they really need the way to develop. But in the past, I mean, we don't have such, a good example for South to South cooperation. But now BRICS set a very good example. So I think that's why BRICS cooperation is more and more attractive to most of these countries. And I would like to give some examples. For example, the new development bank established in Shanghai. In fact, it also expanded the members of NDB. And now there are also a lot of countries, they are waiting in line to join the NDB. So in the past, we don't have a multilateral development bank established by developing countries. And now we have the NDB, so which means that you can have money for example, infrastructure, for digital economy, for green development. You can do all of these within BRICS cooperation. I think most countries, they need this kind of investment, and they also want to learn and share the development experience from the BRICS countries.
And also, Mr. Jiang, how do you think will an expanded BRICS strengthen its influence globally, both in political and economic arena?
Well, for this question, in fact, I think, well, first of all, I think an expanded BRICS is already a power that the current international society can never ignore. But I would like to emphasize, because I have heard this kind of, I think, misunderstanding or misinterpretation for many times. BRICS is not an anti-Western bloc. It is not even a geopolitical bloc. I don't agree with this kind of interpretation, because I think if you go deep into the BRICS members, you see China, India, Brazil, our new members like Saudi, UAE. I think all of these countries, they have quite close cooperation with so-called Western countries. And we have new members or countries waiting in line to join. Our colleagues just mentioned that, in fact, some of them, they are key allies, great partners of the United States as West countries. And last year, the president of France, Macron, also expressed his willingness to attend last year's BRICS summit. So I think expanded BRICS is also beneficial to the multipolarization and a more balanced global power structure.
Mr. Gao, what is your input on that?
Yes, allow me to add another point. If we look at the world today, another megatrend is the fast development of AI, artificial intelligence. Now, some country wants to monopolize that development. They even want to squeeze China out of the competition. Whereas the reality is that both China and that big country are in the top tier of AI development. But what I'm concerned about is that many other countries will not have either the resource, financial capital, and technological capabilities to fully participate in this AI revolution. That means the world should not allow one single country to monopolize the AI development, because that's not only dangerous, that's also very, very detrimental to the fundamental interests of many other countries. That means for the BRICS organization, because China is a very important member of BRICS, China's resources committed to AI development will not only be for China's own benefit, it will be for all the other BRICS member states. And eventually, we need to overcome this AI divide, because no country wants to be in the deprived sphere in terms of AI development. And I think if BRICS will also develop a focus on AI, possibly led by China first, and eventually all the other members will fully benefit from the achievements, the transformation.
The BRICS countries are committed to promoting the diversification of the international payment system and oppose the politicization and weaponization of the payment system. And BRICS members will further check the possibility of promoting local currency settlement in trade and investment. The new development bank, the Multilateral Development Bank established by BRICS, plays a vital role in advancing member countries' infrastructure development, local currency financing, and trade.
The NDB, since it was established more than 9 years ago, I believe, now it has led to many projects, infrastructure projects and green development projects among the BRICS nations. How would you comment on the role of the NDB, Mr. Gao?
Well, I think the NDB is an extraordinary phenomenon. I think NDB should not only serve the interest of the 10 member states of BRICS. I think they should look way beyond that scope. They should take into consideration potential projects, for example, in many of the so-called Deep South countries, because they not only need to serve the interests of the member states and non-member states for today, but 10 years from now, or 20 years from now, or even 50 years from now. So they need to have a very long-term plan about the raison d'etre of the NDB itself, about what it needs to do now, in the future, and also what it can do in coordination with so many other international financial organizations. I'm so happy to see NDB is already up and running. My hope is that NDB will really elevate itself to a much higher level, to look at the world and to adopt a more dynamic and interactive perspective, and to engage with all the possible financial institutions they can think about, if such cooperation will serve the fundamental interest of not only the existing BRICS member states, but many other countries. They could view all the other countries in the global south as their stakeholders.
Mm-hmm. And Mr. Jiang, what is your vision for the NDB?
Yes, as I mentioned earlier, because NDB is the first, I think, multilateral development bank established by developing an emerging economy. So I think it is a very important player toward a multipolarization world. So because, you know, in the past, before NDB, in fact, I usually heard complaint from developing countries that, oh, it is too hard to borrow the money from World Bank or IMF, and their voices were even not heard, I mean, to some extent, in those traditional international financial organizations. So I think it is very important for BRICS countries to establish such kind of international financial organization. And it played a very important role in financing, for example, infrastructures, green energy projects in developing countries. And we also talked about like local currency settlement. In fact, these financial projects are also key part to more and more use of the local currency settlement. And I think at the same time, NDB is also a very important part toward the whole, I mean, the global international monetary structure or system. In fact, you know, NDB, in fact, share a lot of experience or even borrow a lot of experience from World Bank structure. So they are not, you know, exclusive. I think they are mutual beneficial in this kind of a cooperation model. And I would like to add that NDB is also one of the most important outcome of BRICS pragmatic cooperation. So NDB itself set the example that how BRICS country will have pragmatic cooperation and how it will help global South countries to cooperate together.
In an increasingly polarized world, BRICS offers a new path to fashion a more inclusive global economic and political order. The 2024 BRICS Summit will not only showcase economic and political ties among members, but also marks the enlarging representation of voices of countries in the global South. China has contributed in promoting cooperation among BRICS countries in areas such as technological innovation, digital economy, and sustainable development.
Let's come back a little bit to this year's summit. We have a lot to expect, as Mr. Gao gave us a tease earlier in the program. So what contribution do you think China can make to this year's BRICS summit?
Well, first of all, if we look at the 10 member states of BRICS, China is the largest economy. And therefore, the weighting of China for the overall size of the BRICS economy is huge. Now, further, China is developing its economy in an all-comprehensive way. And China has the most comprehensive lineup of all the industrial productions. And China is the largest manufacturing economy in the world and the largest exporting economy, is that right? Therefore, I think China can really put a lot of weight on the table and talk on an equal basis with all the other BRICS organizations as to what's the right thing to do, maintaining stability, keeping peace, and putting a premium on development, and always emphasize on the importance of science and technology. Therefore, I think China is an equal partner, of course, but also China can utilize a lot of resources to make sure that BRICS as an organization will be on the right path. It will not be diverted by any other country, for example, member states or not, and it will refuse to be dragged into wars and conflicts. I completely agree with the panelists in Shanghai. BRICS should never be a geopolitical organization. It should not be a Cold War organization. It should not put a premium on war, confrontation, and rivalry. It should always set itself in sharp contrast to what some developed countries are doing. They are increasingly moving into geopolitical organizations. They cannot live without talking about confrontation, about war, for example, or Third World War, even nuclear conflagration. BRICS should have all its sanity in the mind, should always focus on peace and development and improving the living standards of the people, put a premium on science and development. So China will do exactly what it has been doing for the past 46 years, maintaining stability at home, keeping peace abroad, put a premium on economic development and inclusive development, not only inside China, but within the 10 member states of BRICS and way beyond the framework of BRICS going forward.
Well, the BRICS summit in Kazan will have a profound impact on the global geopolitical landscape and reshape international dynamics significantly. Well, the summit will also help to foster equitable cooperation and amplify voices of the Global South for a more balanced and inclusive global order. Thank you again to our studio guest, Victor Gao Zhikai, Chair Professor from Soochow University, and Mr. Jiang Tianjiao, Associate Professor and Associate Director of Center for BRICS Studies at Fudan University. And with that, we come to an end of this edition of Biz Talk. I'm Lily Lu in Beijing. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.
CGTN special program, The Hype. I am Li Zhao. You're now joining us on our app and also our various social media platforms, including our Facebook, Twitter, now known as X, and also Chinese Weibo, WeChat, Yangshiping, as well as our official website and also app. So if you have any questions, make sure you leave your comments with #TheHype, and we'll have our guests answer some of your questions. And today our topic is really about the BRICS Summit, the 2024 BRICS Summit, which is set to take place in Kazan, Russia, starting from Tuesday and will last for 3 days. Now, what is BRICS? Now, BRICS is an intergovernmental organization that really began with 5 emerging economies, including B for Brazil, R for Russia, I for India, C for China, and also S for South Africa. And because of its ever-growing influence around the world, the mechanism now sees an expansion of membership with Saudi Arabia, Egypt, the UAE, Iran, also Ethiopia joining in. This is actually the first meeting after the expansion. So a lot of things to be looking forward to. And today we're actually joined by an amazing lineup of guests. They have something very special to share. And today we're focusing on some of the economic and also culture perspective of the BRICS Summit. All right, let's first meet the guests. I'm just gonna have you guys say what is your name and also sort of introduce yourself, where you're at right now and what you do. Let's start from Hannah.
Good afternoon, good morning, and wherever you are. I'm Hannah Wanjia-Ryder. I'm the CEO of Development Reimagined, which is an international development consultancy with our main office in Beijing. I'm currently joining you from Washington, D.C., where we are organizing several events and interacting with other people who work on development issues. So wonderful to be part of this. Thank you.
Hi, Hannah. Good morning. Although it's night here. Good morning to you. And right now, I think, Renato, are you ready?
Yeah, sure. Nice to meet you, y'all. Good to be here. Thank you for having me. I'm talking straight from Wuhan. I'm director of CUSA, also director of Brazilian Citizens Council in Beijing, being in China already 14 years, working with the education market. I'm a lawyer from background, and I did my PhD in public administration, so which give me a lot of background for counseling. So I hope I can help today and share my experience.
Wow, you said you've been here for 14 years in China.
Yes, at the time, yeah.
Wow, 14 years, that's a long time. All right,
Yeah.
let's now turn to Violetta, who's also in China right now.
Yeah, hello everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm Violetta. I'm from Russia. I am a TV director and currently I'm getting my Master of Fine Arts degree in Film and TV Production in Communication University of China in Beijing.
Very cool. So you said you've worked in Russia before, and right now you studied film directing here in China.
Yes, right.
Very cool. And our final guest is Nayan, my former colleague, and right now he is joining us from the US.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm joining from Boston. I'm a journalist. I have worked for more than a decade. I was in India at CNN. Then I moved to China. I was a consultant at CGTN. Had a great time. I lived in China for 5 years. And thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you so much for being here. All right, guys. So we have 2 guests joining us from the US and the rest of us in China right now. And today we're talking about, of course, BRICS. I think a lot of us, or all of us, have some sort of connection with BRICS, right? Either we're from BRICS countries or we have, business doing with BRICS countries. Let me start today's discussion by asking you guys some quick questions to sort of know about your investment strategies, or more directly, money habits. Just tell us the answer that features your money habits the best. Okay. First question is, if you have spare money, are you going to save it or just spend it?
Save it.
Save it? Where?
Definitely.
Are you putting it in the bank or real estate, or?
I would go for a small investment, something more stable, like a good outcome, like
Yeah,
probably like
I would do a
like
mix of bank and real estate.
Mm-hmm. Okay, real estate investment. What about you, Naya?
Yeah, I'm more of a traditional. Obviously, it depends on how much money you have, but I would say bank for starters, and real estate if you have some lump sum that you want to park. That I think is, and gold. I mean, in Asia, in countries like India, gold is considered as a very safe investment. So that's another option.
What about you, Valera? Are you gonna put it in a bank or stock market or real estate?
I would say first I would save and then use money, because saving money only on your bank account is not really safe. And as Naya said, it's a more safe way to invest in real estate, to keep your money and use it in the future.
See, so we got the right guest. Everybody chose to save it. If it's me, I'd probably spend it right away. All right. Next question is, do you prefer high risk, high reward investment or more stable, low risk returns? I think someone already said that they prefer like low risk investment, right? Is it Renato said that?
Yeah, my opinion is like actually a high level investment, like something that I invest, like they'll put a lot of myself, but it will be stable. So sometimes higher risk, sometimes lower risk, but like something more stable, something that I can predict and expect. As Violeta was saying, like you want to accumulate and have a next step to going. Sometimes like open a new business or sometimes getting real estate. It depends on the amount, of course.
So you want investment, but more controllable.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. What about you, Naya?
Yeah, I would agree with Renato, because obviously it depends on the money again. But if it's less money, I would try and maybe do high risk for a while, and see if the stakes are not that high. that's more safe. But if the stakes are very high and a lot of money, of course, has to be more stable and something that I can bank on and can sleep peacefully at night.
What about you, Valera?
I agree with the other guests, because for me, as I'm majoring in communications, I'm not really into financial market, and for me, it's better to invest something low risk, because I can predict the strategy of of my money and can see how they can work for me in the future.
What about you, Hannah? As in someone who already had her own business.
Yeah, perhaps I'm the detractor here, because I feel risks are often perceived. And one of the issues, especially when you come to investment in African countries, which is what I work on a lot, is really kind of getting behind what those perceptions are and the real story. So I may go with something which others might think is high risk, but I definitely don't think that there is.
What kind of investment?
Well, it might be in certain types of projects, energy projects, or manufacturing, etc. Those sorts of things, which again, many of African banks do work on and do invest in. Those are the sorts of things that I'd be interested in investing in.
So I think among our four guests, Hannah is the most aggressive one, can I say that? But she did make decision based on her knowledge and like very thoughtful thinking. But it's still, I think she's the most aggressive among the four. Okay, next question. When you're doing investment, do you focus more on short-term fluctuations or long-term value? Do you focus more on short-term or long-term? Okay, let's start from Violeta.
I think I'm the youngest here, so for me, long-term planning is not a real thing yet. So I would focus more on short-term in recon.
Yep, short-term. Okay, what about you, Naya?
I would say I would prefer long-term.
Long-term. All right. Let's start from Hannah, since you're the entrepreneur here. Tell us the reason why you decided to start your own business, and also within the BRICS framework, did you get any help along the way?
Yeah, so before I began my business, which was in 2018, I was then under 40, I guess. And I've been working international. Been working in international development for just around 14, 15 years. And one thing I realized was that there were all these different international development consultancies, but many of them did not really understand BRICS, did not necessarily even specialize in that sort of area. And there I was, I'd actually been working for the UN in China, and I wanted to bring not just innovation in terms of understanding the different models of development that now we do work with in our consultancy and share through the consultancy expertise, but also innovate in how a consultancy can work and be more sort of agile, focused on African markets in particular. I'm Kenyan, so that was really important to me. And yeah, that was it. I saw a real gap in the market, and that's why I went at it. And every business has its up and downs, but being based in China was a very good decision. It has been very good for us, and we expect significant growth in what we do going forward. So yeah, especially because the Africa-China partnership is increasing, and also and the interest of BRICS more broadly in African countries is also increasing. So that's, we're looking forward, that's exactly the 10, 15-year potential that I'm talking about. Even in my business, that's what I've been thinking through.
How many offices do you have right now?
We have an office in Beijing, in Nairobi, and in London. So we have 3 offices. But we have consultants who are based all over the world, and especially in African countries, so that we have that kind of localized expertise that we can bring to every single project that we work on.
So you have consultants from China, from Africa, and also from
yeah. Our team in China is the most diverse team, and it's the largest team in China, and they're also diverse. So it's a mix of Chinese, Africans, also and others from around the world. But then in Africa, we have about maybe 35% of our team are based in African countries. Yeah.
Cool. So when you are having a diverse team, how do they work along well?
They do, but one of the things we're really intentional about is also understanding different cultures. And to be honest, we believe that diversity is a strength. It's one of the key values of our company, to have serious, significant diversity. So, yes, there are differences in terms of different cultures and ways of working, but we want to use that as a means to deliver.
Right. And also through a diverse team, you can offer a diverse range of ideas to your customers, right?
I think especially for middlemen or like the small investors, it's becoming a really important tool, because it's helping people to create perspectives and gain trust, because we tend to depend a lot of the center of the gray market. And this is giving potential for side markets or periphery, let's say.
Now let's talk about it from a very less, I guess, more culture perspective. I know that you guys have all been living in China, and specifically Violetta, you're a student here at the Chinese University. How do you like the life here? And I guess my first question to you is, what made you want to choose China as a place to study?
Thank you. When I graduated university in Russia, I got nominated to study in China and received government scholarship. And at the time, I was already working as a TV director, and I saw what weaknesses and opportunities of growth we have, especially concerning technical part of broadcasting. And as I knew that China has really advanced technologies, I wanted to come here and study more about it. So it was my professional interest at the first part, but also from my personal interest, I wanted to get the experience of living in a country with such high tempo of economical development, and also participate in cultural exchange, which I believe is a key point of growth, not only for countries, but also for people. As Hannah said, it's about diversity, and it's the key to growth. So yeah, that was my intentions to grow as a professional and also as a person.
Wow. So all about cultural exchanges and also cooperation. And, now let's go to you. I know that you you were working with us, CGTN for like 5 years, you said?
Yes, yes, 5
And
years.
before that, you worked in India. So what made you wanna, come to China and work?
Yeah, I would say there's a lack of awareness about China in India. So when I decided to move to China and I told my family and friends, they had a question, like, why China? And I used to ask them a counter question, why not China? So
Wow.
I think, despite being so close, I mean, there used to be a direct flight, which was like 4 hours from Delhi to Beijing. We don't know much about each other's culture. There is a perception gap in the country, and I wanted to try new things. I was at CNN in India, as I mentioned, and wanted to explore. I think my first brush with China would I say was 2008 Beijing Olympics. And I think it was for a lot of people, it was a moment when you realize that, oh, this is a country which has put out a great show, and we want to know more. So yeah, that was the idea.
And also, professionals like Hannah can also promote like BRICS cooperation as well, because through her advice, a lot of business can actually, whether that's African business going into China or Chinese business going to, African countries or other countries, they can get advice from, experts like Hannah. All right. I think you guys, Nayan just talked about how BRICS has just welcomed 5 more members starting from the first day of this year, 2024. And also over 30 countries have, including Thailand, Malaysia, Turkey, and Azerbaijan, they've either formally applied or expressed interest to join in BRICS as well. So following the expansion, the combined GDP of BRICS countries now really accounts for 30% of the global total, and their population now representing nearly half of the world's total. So really more and more countries, especially from the global south, are expressed a willingness to cooperate more with BRICS countries. Now let's go to you, Hannah. As an entrepreneur, why do you think that BRICS are being so appealing to the global south countries? And also, do you think they can be good partners?
Yeah. So I think there's 2 key reasons why the expansion of BRICS is so interesting for many countries. The first is that, and it relates to a point that, as I was mentioning, I'm very familiar with as an entrepreneur, which is diversification. So many countries have been, relying on certain partners for their development. And those partnerships have, in some ways, some of them have really stagnated. Other ones have reduced, even in absolute terms, not just relative. Again, countries are thinking, let us not just put our eggs in one basket, let's move and think differently. And also, we have been growing our economic partnerships. We've seen countries like China and India really develop a lot, or Brazil really develop a lot, and we're building something really quite interesting and unique. So let's take advantage of that. Let's understand each other more. So I think that diversification is one key reason why we have a lot more countries, including African countries, interested in partnership with BRICS. I think the other second reason is really about the willingness and the different understanding of development and different understanding of how countries progress, which BRICS offers. And I say that because, also as a development professional, and again, coming back to that sort of history, one of the reasons why I even came to China in the first place, I wanted to come to China in the first place as a development professional, was because I felt I couldn't understand development if I didn't understand the country that is effectively the world leader in development, over 800 million people lifting themselves out of poverty. How were those conditions created? And I think countries like Brazil, China, India, South Africa too, we can these countries offer something different, some thinking outside of the box in all sorts of ways. You know, we did a report last year which was about intellectual property and how countries deal with intellectual property. It's not just one set of rules. Different kind of rules can lead to some great results. And I think that shifting in understanding and broadening of understanding, and sometimes the kinds of rules that, you know, China or India might have used are more relevant to the kinds of challenges that the African countries are going in. So I think that increasing in understanding is also critical, and I think that's a second reason why many countries are interested in working more closely with BRICS and being part of the BRICS mechanism, because they get to even be able to have the forums to ask those questions and to discuss those issues together and work together on a way forward.
So really combine the intelligence and sometimes learn from each other as well.
Yes, yeah, and thinking outside of the box.
Innovative. It's all about innovation. All right, Renato, now we know that as well, we are now welcoming more countries and member states to join the BRICS mechanism. In what way do you think we can promote that kind of cooperation within the framework?
Well, I think the first important point here is the innovative perspective that BRICS represent. They're representing a decentralization of the world economy. So we have different new centers of economy. It's not like the BRICS is becoming the new center. So there are different centers. They're joining a forum of debate and building a tool to operate in the world financial system. The second step is like observing that this new center, this new forum of debate is thinking from the majority of the population of the world, different from the past where we have, like, for example, the G7 that has 10% of the population of the world. And we're deciding a lot how the economy should be ruled. So like there's a democratization of the world economy. And in a way that we're not centralizing China or Russia or Brazil, but we're bringing new members to participate. So when we bring about this perspective of like, so how can we build the BRICS as organization? I think it's as a forum that can create tools to, articulate these different multi-centers. It's a multipolar world, right? So I think that's how we're like coming about. And yeah, I think like I wouldn't put better than that right now. Like I think that's the center of the whole discussion. Even like this new like financial tools are a way to democratize. And I think like all our like participants here have been putting how important is the people-to-people relation in this process. And I think like one of the first launching before even the forum this week, they launched like this new BRICS card, which is like to facilitate already normal people daily like life actions be using like already a tool that like the BRICS is building. These already assigned and like normal people are taking part, not just government, those high level or big institutions, but people to, and that's how you're gonna facilitate students to move around or business to move around. And like I think that's like what we are like bringing like with this BRICS organization itself.
So starting from something very basic is understanding each other, right? Having your people to really come to each other's countries and get to know each other. Like Nayan, you were in India. A lot of people ask you why you chose China to be your work country, and you were here and you understand China. And right now you chose another country to, further your study. Do you think that studying in or like working in that country is a good idea for people to really understand that country better?
Yeah, I think you have to be here for some maybe medium to long term. If you really want to understand the culture, if you really want to understand the working environment, and also how where you live, try to reach out to the local communities. I think it's very important to stay put for some time. I would say at least 5 years. So that was one of the decisions that I made about China, that I'm here for some time. Yes. I may look forward after that in the long term, but when I moved to China, that I had a rough timeline in mind that I want to stay and learn more and grasp as much as I can, so that it becomes easier to not just interact on a daily basis, but also understand the country as a whole, how its systems works, how culture interacts with policy. I think that is something which sometimes is not taken. It's taken for granted when you're drafting policies. You do not take into account how a country perceives itself first, and then it makes policies. And I think BRICS, as an organization, provides that opportunity to learn more and more interactions, as I mentioned earlier, with among students, amongst policymakers, is a good thing. And I think the BRICS have been deepening, and I think there's a lot of opportunity, even a lot of potential now to intensify it further and try and build on the concept of South-South cooperation and try to be a partner for developing nations going forward.
All right, now let's turn to our youngest guest. From your perspective, or from someone who's very young, a young professional or young scholar, what do you think young people can do to promote cooperation, promote understanding between within the BRICS framework? Valletta?
I think that studying in BRICS countries and moving abroad is a great way to contribute to your country and develop trade unions and economical exchange in BRICS, because I think that culture is the base that can help us understand each other better, and also, let's say, find the one language to speak, because culture is universal, and also it helps us cross the borders that we have. And I think it's young people participating in educational exchange is the great base for the future of all BRICS countries, because we not only grow personally, but we develop a lot of connections here, and through communicating with different people, we can find new ways to develop our own countries, and also this mutual development, and contribute to this mutual development.
Absolutely. And right now you're a student. In the future, you're going to be culture ambassador like Nayan, who's going to work as a media professional. Who knows where you're going to land? Maybe CGTN as well. We welcome you.
I hope to participate in China-Russia development and exchange in the future and be an ambassador for this. Thank you.
See, we got a bridge over there already. Anyways, I think this really comes to the end of our live stream. We really listened to a lot of different perspectives. We start from something very big. We talk about trade and investment within the BRICS framework, and Hannah talked about her personal experience of how to give ideas or like advice to people from Africa, China, to really doing business, doing more cooperation. Also, Renato shared some of his perspective. But I think at the very end, everybody sort of come to the same page that we need to start from something little, that is building or like bridging that kind of gap and really promote understanding between BRICS countries. And that is BRICS really all about. It's about, openness, inclusiveness, and also innovative development. And that is what BRICS is all about. So hopefully we're going to see you guys contributing to the cooperation within the BRICS framework, and in the future, whether that's in media industry or trade investment, or, maybe lawyer. Renato is still doing lawyer consulting work. We're going to see more, people join in the trend and promote cooperation between the emerging markets. So thank you so much for your insights, our guest. That's Hannah, Renato, Naya, and also Valletta. Thank you so much again. And also all of you guys who have been with us this whole time. Thank you so much again, and bye.
Welcome to CGTN. 10 countries making up over a third of the world's economic output. That's BRICS. The bloc initially comprised Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. It expanded this January with Saudi Arabia, Iran, the UAE, Egypt, and Ethiopia.
That's right, and now leaders from key emerging economies are gathering for the 16th BRICS summit in Kazan, Russia. Chinese President Xi Jinping is attending the summit for the 12th time. It also marks President Xi's 10th visit to Russia as head of state.
President Xi will meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin. China and Russia are marking 75 years of diplomatic relations this year. How will China and Russia collaborate to promote South-South cooperation, especially under the BRICS framework?
That's right, and we're going to certainly explore that more and this in the CGTN special program, Building an Inclusive World.
I'm Zhong Shi reporting alongside Mang today, and welcome to our special program. Chinese President Xi Jinping has arrived in the Russian city of Kazan. Russian officials greeted President Xi at the airport, including the head of the Republic of Tatarstan, Rustam Minnikhanov, and Tatarstan Prime Minister Alexei Pasoshin, and the mayor of Kazan, Yosir Mechin. Guards of honor lined up on both sides of a red carpet to salute the Chinese leader. Russian youths dressed in national costumes welcomed him with traditional courtesy. CGTN reporter Zhao Yunfei has this report from the airport.
Chinese President Xi Jinping has arrived in Russia to attend the 16th BRICS summit. He landed at Kazan International Airport on Tuesday, kicking off his three-day trip in Kazan. The Chinese Foreign Ministry says President Xi will have in-depth exchanges with leaders of other countries on the current international situation, practical BRICS cooperation, and the development of the BRICS. This year marks the beginning of greater BRICS cooperation. The intergovernmental organization's member state leaders are gathering for the first time since last year's Johannesburg summit decided to double its membership. China says BRICS has followed the spirit of openness and inclusiveness, stayed committed to upholding multilateralism, and has become a positive and stable force for good in international affairs. This is President Xi's 10th visit to Russia as a Chinese president. Beijing says the Sino-Russian partnership of strategic coordination is a new type of state-to-state relationship that is non-confrontational in nature and adheres to mutual respect, equal treatment, and win-win cooperation. Local Chinese compatriots are rallying in the streets to welcome President Xi. The Chinese president will attend small and large-scale BRICS leaders meeting, BRICS Plus leaders dialogue, and deliver important speeches. Beijing says it is committed to working with other parties to open a new era for the global south to seek strength through solidarity and promote world peace and development. Zhao Yunfei, CGTN, Kazan.
And one important highlight of this multilateral event is that President Xi Jinping will meet Russian President Vladimir Putin at the Kazan Kremlin for bilateral talks. Following the development for us is our reporter Huang Fei. She's live for us now from Kazan. Well, good to see you there, Huang Fei. What are some of the highlights we could watch out for between at this bilateral between President Xi and Putin?
Huang Fei, if you're with us here, can you talk to us about the highlights that we can expect from the meeting between the two presidents?
Hello, Mang. Yes, I'm standing at the center of Kazan City, not too far from where President Xi is staying at, and the locals are speculating that his meeting with President Putin could very much be at the sort of the historic center near us, not too far from where I'm standing. Kremlin officials have said that the meeting between the two leaders are expected to start pretty soon, potentially within the hour. Now, the key topics in their agenda would no doubt be about the expansion of the group, how to effectively integrate all these new voices under what President Xi describes as the greater BRICS cooperation would be a top discussion point. Now, this could be done through creating a new financial architecture, if you will, that is independent from Western institutions. This is all about creating more economic sovereignty, boosting more trade while reducing the vulnerabilities against Western restrictions. Now, China is, of course, Russia's biggest trading partner, with bilateral trade hitting a historic $240 billion last year, and the bulk of that trade is energy, and so that could be another top discussion point as well. Energy trade, also bearing in mind that the new BRICS members, include some of the world's biggest oil and gas producers. So it's all about creating more resilience in the energy supply chain, as well as also discussing more possibilities in the areas of technology, from artificial intelligence to outer space to aerospace. But of course, promoting regional stability and peace will also be part of the discussion. President Xi Jinping wants to show his support, to President Putin within this very complex international situation, and we can see that personal rapport between the two leaders are extending to the grassroots. Just earlier today, I was at the scene where the motorcade arrived, and President Xi was met with warm welcome, by hundreds of people here in Kazan. So I wanted to bring you back to the moment where President Xi arrived, and let's hear from the locals and hear their reactions.
I'm local. This is great opportunity for me to engage in such big politic event like BRICS. China is strong, and Russia is strong too. And so we should have a partnership in business, in science, in culture, in everything.
The BRICS summit is being held here. As an exchange student here, I feel honored to have the opportunity to welcome President Xi Jinping. It feels like my family is visiting. I feel very warm and excited.
I think they can talk about technologies, talk about medicine. I think we together can create some new things.
And that was CGTN reporter Huang Fei reporting live in the streets of Kazan, Russia. We are, of course, monitoring that important meeting between the two presidents right here on CGTN, and we'll bring you more details when that meeting takes place later today. Make sure you stay with us right here on CGTN. Attendees are set to discuss some of the world's most pressing challenges and explore opportunities for deeper cooperation. Among them is Chinese President Xi Jinping, who will meet Russian President Vladimir Putin one-on-one. This meeting underscores China-Russia ties marked by frequent high-level exchanges and a shared commitment to fostering multipolar world order.
China and Russia recently marked 75 years of diplomatic relations, with President Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin exchanging warm congratulations, celebrating their enduring partnership. The leaders reaffirmed their commitment to strengthening the comprehensive strategic partnership in the new era, emphasising practical cooperation across multiple sectors and a shared responsibility for global peace and stability. Just 3 months earlier, the two leaders met in Astana for the meeting of the Council of Heads of State of the Shanghai Cooperation Organisation. President Xi stressed the importance of maintaining the long-standing friendship between the two nations amidst a turbulent global landscape. He emphasised their shared goal of safeguarding legitimate interests and upholding international norms. President Putin echoed these sentiments, describing China-Russia relations as stronger than ever, defined by mutual respect and non-alignment. In May, President Putin made a state visit to China, where discussions on deepening ties took centre stage. During a visit to Harbin Institute of Technology, Putin highlighted the growing importance of people-to-people exchanges, particularly in education, as a means to strengthen understanding and cooperation between the younger generations. As China and Russia continue to build on their historical ties, their evolving relationship remains a cornerstone of their global strategies. With deeper collaboration in the works, they're set to play a pivotal role at the upcoming BRICS summit.
Well, President Putin has said the China-Russia ties are built on mutual respect. Putin was responding to a question from CGTN last Friday during his meeting with representatives of leading media outlets from BRICS countries in Moscow. The Russian president said the rapid growth of trade with China in recent years has been built on equality and mutual benefit. He said the two countries are committed to listening to each other and safeguarding each other's interests. Putin said the two countries will continue to strengthen cooperation in energy, agriculture, and infrastructure, as well as science and technology. All right, now we are pleased to be joined here in our studio by our guests. They are Mr. Wang Huiyao, founder of the Center for China and Globalization, and Professor Zhang Gong, economics professor at the University of International Business and Economics. Certainly, gentlemen, great to have you with us on our program. There will be a lot of items on the agenda for multilateral discussion. For example, this is the first BRICS summit after the expansion to include more member states. And experts anticipate that really the BRICS leaders will come up with a renewed vision for the BRICS group going forward. What do you envision to be some of the things that world leaders will be working on for BRICS?
Okay, I will start first. I think BRIC as it adapts to this stage is no longer just a place for talking points. I think it's full of substance. There are concrete projects going on under this framework, and then also I think most important, probably the most defining feature of BRICS is the financial aspect cooperation. We have a bank called the New Development Bank. We have an initiative that is actively underway to establish essentially a trade settlement mechanism among BRICS member countries that can potentially bypass the dominant roles of the euro and the dollar. And I think these are all very concrete developments. And there are other projects involving cooperation and exchanges at the various levels, and I think more importantly at people-to-people exchanges. So I think at a very fundamental level, the BRICS represents the global South, the developing world, and I think looking back after so many years, this organization has fully grown to something of substance, something of a force to be reckoned with in international politics. So I think from that perspective, I think BRICS has been spectacularly successful so far.
Mr. Wang, let me get your take on this also, because President Xi had a very interesting metaphor for the 5 founding members. He said that they are just like the 5 fingers of a hand, extended, they're long and short in length, but then clenched, they actually form a really powerful fist. Now we're talking about 2 fists at the same time with 10 members of BRICS. Mr. Wang, your take on where this grouping is headed next?
Yeah. Absolutely. This is a really, I think, a significant moment because 15 years after the BRICS established. And now I think, 80 years after the Bretton Woods system, the world is really in crisis. We see conflict, we see the world is getting into the multipolar world, and the unipolar world is gone, yet multipolar world is still in the building. And I think BRICS actually become a backbone of this new multipolar world. And then it's actually also represents a trend because we see a lot of circles, lies on security, on military, on rivalry. And yet, BRICS is an open platform. It's inclusive. It's embrace globalization, it embrace economic development, infrastructure development. And furthermore, it's actually, members are not judged by, the way you govern is really judged by how your way to collaborate. We're not really divided by ideological divide, and also you see that the gaps. The rich country can be 50,000 per capita, and then Ethiopia can be just 1,000. So very inclusive and very new experiment. And then this new platform represents a new trend, new development. A variety of a new scheme being discussed. I'm sure this time financial payment system would be another topic to talk about. So which actually adds some positive dynamic and narrative into the global discourse, so that the global South finally have an equitable platform to talk about and to really discuss the global governance issues. So this is new. This has never happened. This is the first time global South has a really reasonable, really significant platform to discuss. So I think what President Xi and President other presidents of the BRICS countries, particularly also Putin as well, being the two UN security member countries, and many others, Brazil and all the other big countries. It's really represents a new trend for development and for economic cooperation.
Exactly the reason why others are wishing to join as well. We're talking about some 30 other countries that are queuing up to join BRICS. Gentlemen, bear with us here on our special program. We'll be back with you later on. Now for more, Sergei Sanakoev joins us live from Moscow. He's the president of the Asia Pacific Region Research Center. Sir, thank you so much for joining us. My first question to you, President Putin has called China-Russia cooperation key to global stability. How do you interpret this statement? And in what ways does their partnership contribute to international stability?
Okay, let's take this. I will take this opportunity to say that it was my prediction almost 30 years ago when we created Shanghai's 5 in 1996 in Shanghai. I told that it will be once upon a time that Russia and China together will save the humanity. And I think this particular time already is now, and we can say that Russia and China shows the standards of relationship between two huge countries, neighbors, for everything, for cooperation, for the people-to-people, for intergovernmental relationship with the very huge mechanism of intergovernmental relationship, and certainly in cultural projects, in sport, in tourism, everything. Everything is on the very high level, and we showed how we will do it this particular time between two countries who is responsible countries for their policy.
Mr. Sanakoev, I want to let me follow up on that, on some specific areas of cooperation, how these two countries can work together. Energy and security, for example, are drawing global attention. What role do these partnerships play in both nations' development and global security, of course?
You called very important items. Most important, I think, certainly it's energy and security. This is the most important today in the modern world. So we have enough, both of it. We have absolutely enough. You can see that Russia is huge of energy. We can export it not only to China, but on the whole world market, mostly what we call the global south. And also security together, Russia and China together is so strong that no one can win us. So certainly we can make this strong security in the world, and all of the other majority countries like Global South will join us. And that's what we can see right today in Kazan, what is happening right now.
Mr. Sergei Sanakoev, we appreciate your time and your analysis. Thank you so much for joining us today. Let's come back to our guests here in the studio. Gentlemen, while we're on the topic of China-Russia relations, both leaders obviously speak very highly of this relationship. Professor Gong, let me get your take on this. What do you think are some of the biggest features and hallmarks of this relationship right now?
Well, I think probably the most important aspect of this relationship is really the economic relationship against the backdrop of this conflict going on in Ukraine. And I think China is remarkable in the sense that it still maintains a neutrality position, maintaining both economic relations with Russia as well as Ukraine. A lot of people get lost, didn't know that China is also Ukraine's largest trade partner. China, of course, trade with Russia is growing rapidly. Surpassed, I think, $40 billion last year, and I think this year has probably been maybe exceeding $250 billion. And I think, very interesting and also very fortunately, the relationship has been very complementary towards each other. We export a lot of manufactured products to Russia, and as you all know, Russia is a resource-rich country. It has been exporting raw materials, crude oils, gas, and other energy products to China, and this relationship has been working spectacularly well, in my view. And also, I think the close relationship between the two countries at a political level serves as an anchoring force international politics. I think in today's world, we are no longer going to just tolerate the club of this 7 richest countries preaching to the rest of the world in a quite pompous way. I think we have our own interests. Russia has its own interests. The developing world has their own interests, and I think this relationship between China and Russia, I think, serves the anchoring role for the global South. So in that sense, I think it's very important for China and Russia.
Yeah. All right, stay with us, gentlemen. We'll be back with you later on our program. Now, the group is representing nearly half of the world's population and a quarter of global GDP. The focus will be on strengthening multilateralism for equitable global development and security. CGTN reporter Huang Fei has the story.
Welcome to Kazan, Russia, a city that shares its name with the iconic family center, where couples come to tie the knot. This unique architecture embodies Kazan in Slavic languages, a giant cauldron blending diverse cultures and faiths. It's a fitting backdrop for the BRICS summit, where leaders from founding nations will welcome 5 new members, alongside over 30 countries interested in joining.
BRICS began with the unification of the largest countries by population and territory located in different parts of the world. This allows for a distinct perspective on global processes, fostering constructive dialogue among nations. Countries seeking their place want to engage in a framework where they're heard and understood.
Leaders are expected to address key global issues, from climate change to food security and tech cooperation. A top priority will be financial reforms, including exploring national digital currencies for investments and the potential for a common BRICS currency.
The summit will also test BRICS Pay, a decentralized payment messaging system like SWIFT. This new tool is aimed at boosting trade cooperation while helping member nations reduce their dependence on Western institutions.
Local businessman Daniel Galulin welcomes the move. He manufactures boilers for Russian energy companies, increasingly sourcing parts from China due to Western sanctions.
As a business person, I faced significant challenges earlier this year. While some issues have been resolved, financial hurdles remain, including extra costs for transferring money to China. I hope BRICS will simplify operations and help balance currency differences, because we are currently very dependent on the dollar and the euro.
There will also be special focus on interactions between China's President Xi Jinping and Russian President Vladimir Putin. This is President Xi's 10th visit to Russia as China's leader.
Russia and China always have something to offer each other, including our mutual cultural enrichments and close economic ties. The two countries support each other in a complex international situation. This trust extends from the highest levels down to the grassroots, as people here in Russia are very interested in what is happening in China.
Amid global economic slowdowns and geopolitical divides, China is stepping up as a driver of growth and stability for emerging economies. Beijing remains committed to free trade, strengthening global supply chains, as well as achieving the UN's 2030 climate goals. In the next few days, China will continue to advocate for multilateralism, positioning itself as a stabilizing and positive force in global affairs. Huang Fei, CGTN, Kazan, Russia.
Well, the BRICS summit will be held from October 22nd to 24th in Kazan, capital of Russia's Tatarstan Republic. Our correspondent Ilyusa Milankovich spoke with the head of the Republic of Tatarstan about the preparations of this event.
I am confident this event will be held at a high organizational level. This is a huge effort by our federal colleagues, primarily Ross Congress and the presidential administration, and our role here is also very important. No one will take away what is being done in Kazan as part of BRICS preparations. Everything will remain, including the facilities and the condition of the roads, the condition of hospitality facilities, the airport complex, the exhibition center. It is a huge amount of work and huge investments, but it is all for the benefit of the people who live here. We have a great interest in partnerships with Chinese regions. There are great possibilities there. Good relations between the Chinese leader and the Russian leader allow us to build relations with the People's Republic of China. The pandemic has slowed us down a little bit. I must say that we have a lot of useful things to learn at the level of government, at the level of municipal authorities. We have an opportunity to learn from them. And of course, trade and economic relations are also important given the new circumstances. The West has left and the East has risen, and in a very dignified way. The growth of trade turnover and our plans are largely connected with the Eastern countries, first of all with China. I think that any visit of a head of state, and especially of such a state as China, is certainly an opportunity for us to showcase ourselves. And we know that China is a very disciplined country. If there is a positive message from the head of China towards Tatarstan, it is again our competitive opportunity to continue working for the benefit of Russia-China relations.
The summit in Kazan is the first gathering of BRICS countries following its expansion to include 5 new members. CGTN spoke to some top officials of BRICS nations about their expectations for this year's summit.
I would say that Thailand could be a bridge that connects BRICS with the ASEAN region for unlimited economic opportunities. With China as one of BRICS key members, I am certain that our journey with BRICS beyond the summit will move forward smoothly.
The BRICS, since you asked also about the BRICS, is a new group which is very important and whose cohesiveness is essential for a peaceful world.
We see that the payment system has recently become politicized. Western countries restrict payments and money transfers through banks. They limit the use of the financial message transmission system. Therefore, in order to ensure the independence and stability of our trade relations, there is a question of creating our own settlement system, our own system for transmitting financial messages, so that there will be no risks in our trading, and there were no risks to trade with the BRICS countries. We discussed this issue with our partners and colleagues in the ministries of finance. In general, we agree that we will prepare a report to our leaders. Both their report and our proposals will be presented at the BRICS summit in Kazan.
And now let's continue our discussion with our guests here, Mr. Wang Huiyao and Professor Zhang Gong. So the BRICS countries are representative of the global south, and China and Russia have also been advocating to include multilateralism, to uphold that vision in this grouping. I want to get your thoughts now, Mr. Wang, on the roles that China and Russia have been playing in trying to shape this new order by BRICS countries who are also representative of the global south.
Yes, I think that for any platform you need key drivers. I think China obviously is being the largest economy, is most active driver probably in the BRICS system. But of course, this time the summit is held in Kazan in Russia, and I think Russia also now, it has to getting out of the probably more peacemaking process, because we see BRICS country can be a big peace platform as well. We had the Friends for Peace, which China, Brazil, South Africa, and many other countries actually calling for promoting the peace. So it's more as a balanced approach to really solve this crisis going on. So I think that particularly also being the two probably larger economy in the BRICS countries, you need more countries to come in. And then China actually play again a pivotal role there, because all the other countries, 30-some countries lined up to join, because they see this is another alternative of globalization, of economic globalization, where you're benefiting all the other countries. So what I think that this time, the summit in Russia is more focused probably on the economy, on the financial payment system and many other new experiments, which is also a healthy competition to really promote the world in going into the right direction. Otherwise, we probably have all those rivalry positions. We have all the sanctions, tariffs and all this. So there's no major political groupings to really support the liberalization of globalization. I think this time that what happened in Russia could signal further BRICS countries' wishes to development, and also signal further people are really tired of picking sides. They want really development, and also signaling there's more efforts now to want to have this peace, not only between Russia and Ukraine, but also for Palestinians as well. So I think BRICS can play a lot of more important role in stabilizing and a great contributor to the global peace and prosperity.
Professor Gong, the reason that this summit has drawn so much attention is it's the first with 5 new members. Now, these 5 new members bring more power. They also bring in more needs. You were coordinating with the 5 founding members. Now you're coordinating between 10 members. How will these 5 new members impact the dynamics within the BRICS grouping?
Well, first of all, I think the expansion of BRICS essentially means the expansion of its representation of the global south. You have countries from Africa, 2 countries representing Africa. You have countries representing both sides of the Arab world, both sides of the Islamic world. This is certainly a very good development in my view. The next thing is that with more countries joining the BRICS bloc, it also expands its economic cloud. I think these are fairly economically powerful countries, like Saudi Arabia is a major oil exporting country, and Egypt and Ethiopia. These are fast developing countries on the African continent. So I think from a representation point of view, from an economic cloud point of view, from the point of view of further cooperation among countries within the developing world, I think it's a great development. Again, I want to emphasize that BRICS is about concrete steps, concrete projects, as Henry has just said, that probably this time the most important development probably would be with respect to that financial project, the BRICS Pay, the payment system that represents a major competition with the dollar-dominated SWIFT system.
Well, the BRICS is about diversity, is about representation, and of course, inclusivity. Let's also take a look at this now. Russian officials and analysts have high expectations for the BRICS summit. TV BRICS, based in Moscow, spoke to several Russian experts and shared these interviews with CGTN.
Expectations are very optimistic. Why? Because first of all, we see that the BRICS is gaining momentum. More and more countries that either joining or declaring their intention to join. When it comes to customs cooperation, strategic directions for customs cooperation in the BRICS, they largely coincide with what we do here in the Euro-Asian Economic Commission. We expect that it may be possible in the future to establish such contractual relations on simplification of customs procedures. I think we should wish the BRICS to move towards such agreements.
Transport corridors are impetus to economic development for all agents. So it's a very good prospect for the BRICS, and not just in energy, where they already have almost half of the world's market share in oil and gas, but in all other areas. I would say probably transportation is one of the top priorities, and food security. There's a lot that BRICS countries can do in space development as well. For example, Russia has been one of the leaders there for a long time. China is definitely breaking into the leadership now. India works on launching satellites, and many countries can join in. So economic development will probably be based on these combination of interests and the creation of joint projects that all these countries are interested in.
There's another important circumstance why the discussion of environmental and climate issues must necessarily and inevitably get on the agenda of the summit. We realize that there's a lot of different, fairly tough negotiations ahead. The climate conference in Baku and global plastics treaty negotiations in Busan are coming. And of course, on the eve of these negotiations, the harmonization of the position of the BRICS countries would give our countries significant negotiating capacities.
Egypt is among 2 African nations to join BRICS in January this year. TV BRICS Africa spoke with Vasu Ngandan, Executive Director of the African Center for the Constructive Resolution of Disputes. He said joining BRICS can bring African countries knowledge and skills that will boost local agricultural development.
BRICS will, with its existing members and now the expanded BRICS, can play a very, very positive role on our continent. What do we need on the continent? We don't need to extract our resources and send them out. We need value addition. And value addition means we must beneficiate our natural resources and beneficiate our agricultural resources. We have 60% of arable land in the world sits in Africa. Why are we importing food? We should be exporting food, and we should be taking care of our own food security. So it's those things that BRICS countries can assist us with by bringing their technology, bringing their know-how and skills into Africa and helping us beneficiate, not taking our resources out of the continent.
Well, this year's BRICS Summit is in Kazan, a historic city in Russia. The mayor of Kazan, Isur Metchin, speaks to CGTN about preparing for the major event and his expectation of Kazan of becoming a significant place in global politics.
Мы сделали рекордное количество парков и скверов в этом году.
We have built a record number of parks and squares this year. We have rebuilt quite a lot of structures, and we have done some work on transport infrastructure, including a railway station. Our airport's throughput and capacity have been expanded and can receive all types of aircraft at the same time. All these upgrades will remain after the BRICS Summit to serve our residents and future visitors. We expect Kazan to go down in history, specifically in terms of global politics, as a place where peace will be achieved and where decisions on a new multipolar world order will be made. There were the Potsdam and the Yalta conferences, which brought about significant outcomes. We hope Kazan will become such a place. The main event will take place at the Expo Exhibition Center, which we built in 2019 for the World Skills Competition. The bilateral meetings will take place at the Kazan Kremlin and the Kazan City Hall. Kazan, as a municipality, is very active in international intermunicipal cooperation. In 2005, we became home to the headquarters of the Asian branch of the United Cities and Local Authorities Organization.
And CGTN reporter Dai Kai reflects on Chinese President Xi Jinping's remarks at previous BRICS summits, offering insights into the future direction of the bloc.
It's been a long time coming for the 16th BRICS summit in Kazan, Russia. Over the years, the BRICS nations have turned ideas into action, shaping a platform that now represents the voices of emerging markets and developing countries. As a key player, China has been instrumental in driving progress. As early as 2013, Chinese President Xi Jinping emphasized in Durban, South Africa, that one tree does not make a forest. He called on BRICS countries to not only focus on their own growth, but to work for the common development of all nations. Fast forward to 2017 at the BRICS summit in Xiamen, China, where 5 non-BRICS nations, Egypt, Guinea, Mexico, Tajikistan, and Thailand, participated at China's invitation. President Xi introduced the BRICS Plus model, aiming to create a more open and diverse network of development partnerships, giving more countries a chance to engage. In his keynote address at the BRICS Business Forum, he quoted an old saying, "It is easy to break one arrow, but hard to break 10 bundled together," stressing the importance of leveraging collective strengths, advancing South-South cooperation, and promoting dialogue between Global South and North. In a virtual address at the 14th BRICS Summit in Beijing in 2022, President Xi Jinping praised the BRICS mechanism for its resilience and vitality amid global challenges. He emphasized the importance of remaining open and inclusive, welcoming like-minded partners into the BRICS family. He said that BRICS countries gather not in a closed club or an exclusive circle, but as a big family of mutual support in a partnership for win-win cooperation. At its core, this platform is about upholding openness, inclusiveness, and harnessing collective wisdom and strength. Soon, all eyes will turn to Kazan, Russia, to see how the country members take cooperation to the next level with a further expanded alliance. Dai Kai, CGTN.
A Russian expert says BRICS has become an important part of a multipolar world. Alexei Maslov is the director of the Institute of Asian and African Studies of Moscow State University.
First of all, I must point out that BRICS has become an important platform for international cooperation. It brings many countries together and sets a series of goals. First, its goal is to keep the world economy stable and conduct economic dialogues. It's committed to promoting economic and trade exchanges and create a comfortable environment for businesses. China has brought up a number of proposals in this regard, and they've been raised well before the summit. Then, BRICS nations are committed to promoting collective security. We see that BRICS nations are becoming an important summit of a multipolar world. It guarantees not just military security, but also cybersecurity and food security, among others.
Mama, we are getting word this hour that the Chinese and Russian presidents have met in person at the Kazan Kremlin. Chinese President Xi Jinping arrived earlier in Kazan, Russia today to attend the 16th BRICS summit. Of course, we'll bring our viewers more details when they become available.
Right. The two heads of state met repeatedly in the past, and this is for a different occasion, of course, and with added meaning. And anticipation is high that the two leaders, along with other BRICS leaders, will map out some strategic vision for the BRICS countries, for the BRICS grouping, with more members included.
Gentlemen, we left off just now with Professor Gong saying that China-Russia relations serves as an anchor of world politics. I find that rather interesting. Mr. Wang, can I get your take on this? Because this relationship has raised some eyebrows in other corners of the world. Professor Gong says it's an anchor for world politics. Do you echo that view? How would you describe China-Russia relations at the moment and its impact on other parts of the world?
Well, I might have a slightly different view because I think that, there are several anchors of the world. Certainly, China and BRICS become one major anchor now, but there's also other G20, there's G7, there's ASEAN, there's the European Union. There's quite a few, but the one that represents most promising future, I think, is BRICS because BRICS have this dynamic, it's young and also full of attractiveness because we just doubled last year. Now there are 30 countries, some countries lined up to join because this is the most the platform has the global economic prospect and also new experiment. So if you do not invest as early angel investor, you may not get the future benefit of that. So that's why so many countries wants to be part of that. But furthermore, I think this is the biggest ever event in Russia since the conflict broke out between Russia and Ukraine. And then, it's also, there seems to be BRICS countries will have more interest now to calm down this conflict between Russia and Ukraine. And of course, I'm sure that they're going to talk about what happened in the Middle East. So the BRICS countries not only become an economic powerhouse, but also a political forces now to really stabilize the world, to really promoting peace and prosperity. So I think in that sense, BRICS has so many new roles to play, full of expectations, and that really give a new reforming power to the global governance and the global system. Of course, to add on, to improve, to enlarge, not really to replace. But I think, both China and, of course, Russia, but also on India is also there. I just heard that the India and China has really reached agreement on the bordering issue, on patrol issues. Could be a possibility the two leaders could meet there. So I'm really very hopeful for this BRICS summit. There's so many new things, new experiment, new connotation, new membership, and also new trend that is arching in for the global south, and then play active role for the world into the positive future.
Well, Professor Gong, what do you think is making the BRICS grouping so appealing to not only the old members, the founding members, but also the new emerging markets and the developing economies who would like to join? Because we know over the years, the BRICS is still a young grouping. It's established its own infrastructure bank, the new development bank, and also it's including more members in the past year. What's making it so appealing and attractive?
Well, I think this is probably the most effective and also probably the most influential entity or international organization that represents the developing world, representing the global South countries. So from a political point of view, I think it's quite appealing to countries to be part of that, to be part of the policy coordination or policy making process, to voice their own opinions at the forum. And I think probably more importantly is really in areas of economic relationship. And as you mentioned, we have this real bank analogous to the World Bank. And actually, in my view, the new development bank is evolving towards essentially the combination of the World Bank as well as the IMF, because we're talking about the BRIC SDR, the special drawing rights. There's some reports about creating a special BRICS SDR backed by 40% gold and a 60% basket of several currencies, being Chinese yuan as being the most important in that basket. So I think this is actually happening very fast, evolving rapidly. This is, I just give you one example. In old days, when a country has a bad balance payments, it's running off its foreign exchange reserves. The only thing you have to do is to go talk to the IMF. IMF says, okay, we'll offer you a loan in the form of SDR, but there's a political strain attached with that loan, right? And I don't think that the BRICS SDR would follow that model. I think, first of all, offering an alternative to many countries would be appealing to these countries. And second, I think fundamentally, the new development bank operates very differently without the kind of ideological restraints and preaching that have been happening at the IMF and World Bank.
Professor Gould, Mr. Wang, thank you so much. And my colleague Gathri Manikam spoke to Eric Salem, former Under-Secretary General of the United Nations. He says the summit is an opportunity for the West to learn from the Global South on how to coexist peacefully.
How would you define the role of the summit?
I think the role of the BRICS is to try to bring order to a world which is in enormous change. For the last 200 years, the planet has been dominated by Western powers, first the European colonialists and then United States of America. Now we see the rise to the top of the global South, China, India, so many others, and we need an order in this new multipolar world. And this is a body which brings together all those nations who want such an order, but based on the interest of the global South. And look, that is an opportunity for a much more peaceful world, because all the major power of the global South are not into any wars. China hasn't fought a war for the last 45 years. India has only fought wars with Pakistan, and all the other big powers of the global South have not attacked anyone else. There is so much for the West to learn from the global South, and BRICS is an opportunity to bring those lessons to the global table.
With new members and new additions to BRICS Plus, the group of emerging powers will be more globally representative at this month's summit. Is a new order, world order, emerging? And if so, what are the implications of this?
We have been through a century which basically was dominated by the United States, with, of course, some input in some period from the Soviet Union. But the dominant power was the US. They could set the global order. But it was not a rules-based order, because there were some rules for the United States and the West and others for the rest. For example, the United States engaged in 80 regime change operations in other nations. Ridiculous. If other nations had tried to do anything similar, it would have been completely unacceptable for the United States. The United States has basically been involved in every war in the world for the last decades, while the global South has not initiated any major war. So the time when there is one rules for the West and others for the rest cannot continue. But we have not yet come to the time or the place where we have agreed on a new set of rules, which are the same for everyone, which need to be based on peace, on dialogue, on mutual respect, and of course on fighting together the biggest problems for humanity, like environment destruction, poverty, and climate change.
The BRICS group has gained significant attention in recent years due to its growing influence in global economies and politics. The expansion of the group represents a pivotal moment in international relations, reflecting the shifting dynamics of power towards emerging economies.
To become full members of BRICS.
On January 1st, 2024, the BRICS group welcomed 5 new members: Iran, Egypt, Ethiopia, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates. With the admission of these countries, the BRICS Plus now represents almost half of the world's population, a third of global GDP, a quarter of global trade, and 40% of global oil production. Each of the new members has a unique role to play in the bloc. Egypt and Ethiopia will bring more voices from Africa. They will lead more discussions on the region's stability, trade, and investment. Iran offers significant energy resources, especially in oil and gas. It also provides a perspective on Middle Eastern geopolitics, enhancing regional dialogues within the group. As one of the world's largest oil producers, Saudi Arabia will play a key role in global energy security discussions and foster economic diversification strategies. Its geopolitical influence in the Middle East allows it to provide insights into regional dynamics. The UAE is a major global financial and trade hub, particularly through cities like Dubai and Abu Dhabi. Its strategic location enhances connectivity.
We wanted to get these pictures to our viewers. They show what's happening in Kazan, Russia. The motorcade carrying the Chinese president pulling up to the Kazan Kremlin, where he is expected to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin for bilateral talks.
And this is where the 16th BRICS summit is going to take place, the city in southwest Russia, a historic town there. And of course, Chinese President Xi Jinping is visiting. There will be this important bilateral between the two presidents, Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin.
This is the 12th time for the Chinese president to attend the BRICS summit and his 10th time visiting Russia as president of the People's Republic of China. Over the years, China has hosted the BRICS summit 3 times. During this year's summit, President Xi Jinping will attend events including small group and large group talks and the BRICS Plus dialogue. He will also deliver important addresses. President Xi is expected to have an in-depth exchange of views with other leaders on the international landscape. These pictures show the Chinese president arriving at the Kazan Kremlin. He is expected to talk, of course, with the Russian president. We'll get you more details when they become available. Make sure you stay with us right here on CGTN.
And earlier we mentioned that this is the first BRICS summit following the expansion to include 5 more members to this grouping. And analysts are watching that whether there's going to be some more vision coming out of this meeting. For example, this enhanced solidarity among the BRICS, the old members and the new members. What do you think China could do, Mr. Wang, to help enhance this solidarity? And, as countries are dealing with more global challenges, for example, climate change, what could the big powers do?
Absolutely. I think that actually this BRICS summit actually serves as the right time after it's doubled its size. And not only it now become one polar of the world because that for the multipolar world, but also for itself. They improve the global governance, but also among itself, I think there's also need some improvement as well. The governance structure for the BRICS countries, how it's going to rotate. For example, it used to be 5 countries rotate the meetings, now could be 10 countries rotate the meetings now. So I think they're going to probably also set up the new governance rules or the new improvement of the charters and many things, new financial reforms. But furthermore, I'm thinking of, like Shanghai Corporation, they used to actually have a secretary office. They have a committee to really organize that. And then there's office on that. So maybe in the future, I would think that if possible, that it would be a good idea to have a similar system like Shanghai Corporation, that they have a secretary office, they can really does all the daily works, rather than just one country hosts 1 year after another. So I think there's a lot of improvement on BRICS itself to really be more mature, be more inclusive, more accommodating, and also find a niche and also the global governance strength in this complex world. So there's a lot of hopes on BRICS, and not only its contribution to the world, but it's how itself evolving is also a big item to look at during this year's summit.
And over the past 15 years, the BRICS grouping has grown in size and influence and, of course, in complexity. And earlier, we talked about China has always been advocating for this representation, for example, in terms of quota and voting right in the existing financial system, the IMF, for example. And now we have this NDB, which was established 10 years ago to include more. Now we're watching pictures from Kazan. President Vladimir Putin of the Russian Federation is meeting Chinese President Xi Jinping there. President Xi is attending the BRICS summit, the 16th summit in Kazan, and he will be meeting with President Vladimir Putin on the sidelines, holding bilateral talks on issues of mutual concern of the two countries and the region as well.
There will be small group talks. There will be large group talks. We'll bring all of them to you right here on CGTN. Professor Gong, can we spend some time talking about the alternative payment system within the BRICS that's been gaining traction here? Not everyone is totally on board with this concept. Some want it more, others want it less. Can you help us understand how much consensus there is within BRICS in advocating for such an alternative payment system?
Okay, so the full details haven't been really reviewed, but I have a little bit of understanding of this system is all about. I think, in a sense, it represents a SWIFT system, but it differentiates from the SWIFT system in the sense that it uses new technologies like blockchain technologies. I've seen some reports referring to the connection between BRICS Pay and a project that is currently underway between China's central bank, Hong Kong Monetary Authority, and the UAE's monetary authority called mBridge. It uses blockchain technologies to enable cross-border transactions using local currencies. Essentially, it's a central bank settlement system, but allows the member countries, companies, as well as actually individuals to make cross-border transactions without using the dollar, without using the euro. So it's an entirely new model in my view. It's an entirely new system. I mean, the SDR thing that I've been talking about, the BRICS SDR thing that I'm talking about, is something entirely new. We really haven't seen something like this before. This is not a currency that is dominated by one currency, but it's actually backed by gold as well as by a basket of countries' currencies, and it's distributed system using new technologies, and I think it's quite intriguing to see its development into the future. I think there's still some questions about whether this is going to be successful or it's going to be sustainable, but I think we just have to be patient and see what's going to happen to this new initiative, and hopefully something will be substantiated and develop into something very much larger. And in that sense, I think the role of the new development bank is extremely important in my view. Without that, there will be no financial cooperation within the BRICS system. And I think this is probably, as I said, the new development bank is probably the most important pillars of the entire BRICS system.
This payment system is not going to happen overnight. Based on what you just told us, it's about trade facilitation. It should mitigate exchange rate risks associated with trade transactions. So does that mean that everyone is on board, that there are incentives for all members to really, well, let's check out these pictures coming in from Kazan, Russia.
For example, the sports, the culture, exchanges. We just like our previous cooperation for China and Russia, we have very frequent exchanges of the people to people and travelers. For the cooperation between China and Russia is very stable and positive. And we will continue to expand our cooperation. I mean, cooperation in various fields, including security. For example, we will build an equitable and just world. We have to ensure the cooperation under the BRICS framework between the two countries. And also, under the BRICS framework, we would like to enhance our influence. We will continue to enhance our capability. Today, after the meeting, during the dinner, we will also meet the leaders from other BRICS countries. Just now, we have met President Lula from Brazil. We have talked about the cooperation in healthcare. Unfortunately, President Lula is not able to come here in person, but tomorrow we will discuss with him about these issues through video link. We only have 4 hours of time differences, so it is quite effective to have the video conference between us. Once again, I would like to express my best wishes to President Lula. As for the cooperation, we also want to see more cooperation. Thank you. Once again, I would like to welcome Chinese President and also my colleagues. Thank you. Your Excellency, President Vladimir Putin, my old friend, I'm very glad at your invitation. I came to this ancient town, Kazan, to attend the 16th BRICS Summit. So this is my 3rd meeting with you this year. So this time we choose Kazan to host the BRICS Summit. I try to learn more history about Kazan. I also can see the significance that has been given by the city. About 400 years ago, I could see for some of the ancient routes connecting the two countries past Kazan. So for the tea from Wuyishan mountain in China has been transported to Russia through Kazan. So this year we have sent congratulation letters to each other, and also we celebrate the 70th anniversary of the establishment of the diplomatic ties between the two countries. In reviewing the past 75 years, we have forged ahead and made a lot of groundbreaking achievements. Also, we have explored new development paths and cooperation methods that features non-confrontation and mutual respect. In the new era, we have put high emphasis on the importance and also the development paths of the two nations. For the two sides, we will continue to follow the important guidance of the good neighborliness, friendship and cooperation, and also we will aim to achieve win-win cooperation. We will continue to deepen our cooperation and also to alleviate our strategic partnership and cooperation in various fields. This has also given a lot of impetus for us to advance our modernization. This will also help to bring benefits to the two peoples and ensure the global justice and fairness. At present, the world is faced with changes that has been seen for a century, and also we have a complicated international situation. But I firmly believe that for China and Russia, we have a very close tie for our friendship, and this will remain unchanged. And we will continue to show the responsibilities as major countries. For the BRICS cooperation framework, it is very important structure, and also to serve the developing countries and the emerging markets. And this will also help to promote the road multipolarization and also to promote the economic development in the world. And tomorrow, we are about to have the Leaders Summit for the BRICS Summit. And this is the first Leaders Summit since the expansion of BRICS. This will help to promote the cooperation of the greater BRICS. Russia, as the presidency home country, has made a lot of preparation for this summit. This will ensure that we will have a good start for the greater BRICS cooperation. China highly appraised about these efforts. I would like to work with Mr. President Putin and other leaders to discuss the future development of the greater BRICS cooperation. We will continue to build consensus and also to send out the positive signals on solidarity and cooperation and alleviate the comprehensive strategic cooperation under the BRICS framework, and also get more opportunities to serve the global south and also make greater contribution to build a shared future for mankind.
Well, we just got a glimpse into that meeting between Chinese President Xi Jinping and Russian President Vladimir Putin, with both leaders delivering brief remarks at that meeting. President Putin said that cooperation between the two sides has been stable and positive. He mentioned President Lula from Brazil, who cannot make his way to the BRICS summit because of health reasons, expresses his best wishes to Lula. Of course, he welcomes the Chinese president who arrived earlier in Kazan, Russia today.
And of course, President Xi Jinping talked about modernization, saying that the BRICS is injecting new impetus to the BRICS economies in terms of modernization. He also talked about multipolarization, a concept and a vision that China has always been advocating along with other members of the BRICS grouping. And he also mentioned the greater BRICS, which represents a greater diversity to include more members. 5 of them is joining the big family. He's saying that the greater BRICS is having a good start.
Yeah, on top of that, President Xi also said that he was glad to come to Kazan to attend the 16th BRICS summit. And this is the 3rd meeting between him and the Russian president this year. He looks forward to working with all leaders, including President Putin, when the BRICS meeting takes place. Of course, we'll bring you more details on that when they become available. Let's talk about those brief remarks from the 2 presidents with our studio guests here. You know, it was a very brief beginning for the 2 leaders. We were able to get a glimpse into that. Any impression, any takeaways from what they just said, Mr. Wang?
Well, I think this is very, very important, actually, even though the comment was brief there, but you can see both presidents attach great importance to the BRICS summit. President Xi actually said, you know, this is a greater BRICS now. I heard the first time the term greater BRICS, which means it has been enlarged. That also shows could be even further enlarged in the future, you know, because it's a greater BRICS concept being installed at this summit. But also President Xi mentioned the BRICS, actually, he used the term the emerging economies and the developing economies that will become a big platform for those 2 categories of countries. So that is also a new concept, I'm thinking. But also he said, you know, these BRICS countries and also the discussion, they're not aimed at third parties. There's no geopolitical agenda. It's really more economic. So those are good encouraging words. But finally, I think, you know, President Xi said, you know, tomorrow we're going to have this summit, and he's really, you know, highly expecting that. And I think he's I'm sure this 16th summit will inject a new impetus, as Momo mentioned, for the future of the BRICS summit. And then this really paved the way for the future expansion, because we're going to have a greater BRICS. And it also means that it's inclusive. We're going to welcome any other countries. John was mentioned that some time ago, probably France even expressed interest, wants to join BRICS. I think that's a good idea. Let's open that. You know, let's welcome all the other countries. But it's really a major economic club now. I'm glad that we're having a new major economic club that's loved by developing countries, and hopefully developed countries will come back and let's work all together for the global prosperity.
And another interesting detail from President Xi's brief remark is that he's glad to be visiting Kazan, which is this historic town, one of the important stops along the ancient trade route transporting tea from China all the way to Russia, as the two countries are marking the 75th year of anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic ties. And of course, the deepening of relations between China and Russia has been a source of concern for a lot of other countries who's watching this event unfold in Kazan. Is there any merit to the reasoning behind that, Professor?
I think what President Xi said about the China-Russian relationship probably rings bell more with President Putin. He characterized the bilateral relationship with three phrases. He said it's non-confrontational, it is with mutual respect, and it's more importantly, in my view, it's not targeting a third country. And probably the most important sentence in this entire welcoming, his opening remarks with President Putin, is this sentence he said. He said, China will continue to take the responsibility of a major country, a major power. And I think this statement carries a lot of weight, to President Putin, especially I think when Russia is engaged in this conflict and is facing a very, very difficult international diplomatic and foreign relations landscape right now vis-a-vis other countries. So I think what President Xi's commitment to Russia, summarized in that sentence, means a lot to him. And I think President Putin probably is very happy to hear what President Xi just said about that.
All right. We'd like to thank you for your analysis, Mr. Wang Huiyao and Professor Zhang Gu. We appreciate your insights.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And with that, we come to the end of our special broadcast on the BRICS Summit in Kazan, Russia. CGTN will have comprehensive coverage on this summit, which will last through Thursday. Please do check in with us as we continue to bring you more details of the summit. On that note, I'm Zhong Shi, live in Beijing.
I'm Wang Mengma. We'll certainly be covering the live events from Kazan on the small-scale gathering and the large-scale gathering tomorrow. So do follow us on CGTN and other new media platforms for that and more. Thanks for watching.
Thank you so much for watching.